So, Alexandre Sabanai, welcome to the World Wealth Creation Conference in Singapore.
Thank you, Perry.
Yeah, excellent. So you are the portfolio manager of Perfin. So that's a investments organization that's been around for about 10 years.
Yeah, I enrolled the company as a partner 7 years ago, and the company has two founding partners, Ralph Rosenberg, which is the CIO, and José Roberto Hermílio de Moraes, which is the COO, and he comes from one of the wealthiest industry families in Brazil, from Grupo Votorantim.
Fantastic. And so you've been talking on a couple of key subjects here, and one of those is value investing in Brazil. So tell me about that.
Well, value investing in Brazil has been very delighted to really engage in value investing because it offers great opportunities. I mean, the market was if you look in perspective in the last 20 years, the market was very inefficiently. So it gives the guys that really endures and do a very hard-working, disciplined investment process to really generate huge alphas. So basically, Brazil, in the last couple of years, you had a lot of people think about Brazil only as a commodity bet, more related to the China dynamics. But the truth is that you have a lot of opportunities to invest in very high quality, good companies, totally non-related to the commodity sector.
Fantastic. So what kind of areas are we talking?
Great. I think the most prominent areas in the last, let's say, 6 or 7 years are two sectors. Consumer sector, which was basically helped by the surge of the emerging middle class in Brazil. And the other sector is the financial sector, which are basically banks. Banks in Brazil are consolidated industry. You have 4, 5 major banks. But in the last 2-3 years, you have a lot of fintechs and financial service companies that enter and has huge weight on the index. So these two sectors are having good opportunities to invest.
Fantastic. So financial technology is certainly it's been around forever, but it's certainly a buzzword in today's world. So are there any recognized organizations in the fintech space from Brazil?
Yes, I think there are two most prominent companies. One of them it's a former company called Cetip, which right now turned into a company called B3, which is the major exchange in Brazil. So they have a lot of new ventures on the fintech and to really offer financial service based on very advanced technology, blockchains, etc. And also you have a company called Cielo. It is they started the business as acquiring service, and they are now developing new ventures as starts to use the big data of the clients that they use the credit cards in Brazil to offer this service, this intelligence data service to the retailer clients in Brazil. So these are very, very, very nice companies.
That's fantastic. So certainly it may be a surprise to people that don't know that Brazil has other non-commodity type markets and areas that they're exploring. So from the outside perspective in the Western world, is there any concern for potential volatility of Brazilian governments, that type of thing?
That's a very interesting and very precise with the timing question, because next year we'll have elections, presidential elections, and we've been tested a lot of times in Brazil. I mean, it's in 2016 we have an impeachment process, presidential impeachment process. It's the second time that it happens in Brazil. So I mean, being in Brazil, you are exposure and you are subject to these cycles, very volatile cycles. and being at the emerging markets as well. But the framework, all the legal framework and all the corporate governance framework is being tested during the couple of years, and the outcomes, besides the volatility, the outcomes has come through the positive side. So making the framework more stronger and running through the right direction.
Fantastic. So the other subject you were talking on today, the 6 global trends that will help you make money in the next 10 years. So that's quite dramatic.
Yeah, that's a massive question. I don't know if I have 6, but I have a couple of them, a couple of trends. I think the blockchains will have a huge impact. It starts to see Brazil is a very bureaucratic country. With you could not imagine. I mean, a person from Singapore could not even imagine how difficult it is to open a company and to close a company in Brazil. And I think blockchains, we'll start to see the first steps of blockchain impacting the legal framework in Brazil. And it's just in the very beginning. I think blockchain will have a huge impact worldwide and specifically in Brazil. Yeah. Also, I think a venture trend that would totally change our lives is genetics. There are very few companies in Brazil operating these segments, and even worldwide, genetics is in the very start of the trend, and it will totally change the way that we understand all the diagnosis exams, all the bloody tests that we have, and it will give us precise results and to change the dynamics of the health industry, and we are just starting to see the impacts of this trend. So these are the two trends that I would definitely follow on, and I would best and spend more time studying.
Certainly very interesting, and blockchain certainly a bit of a buzz around that at the moment in the financial world for various reasons, and many of the other speakers have covered subjects around that, such as ICOs and Bitcoin. But the other area you're talking about there, genetics, that does sound very fascinating. So is Brazil looking at businesses in these areas as well?
Yes. There are very few companies and very serious companies that are engaged in providing genetic test exams in Brazil. One of them, and I think almost the only one, is a Grupo Fleury. It's a public listed company. Very serious guys, a premium quality player in Brazil, and they joint venture Quest Laboratories in US, and they are ahead 10-20 years ahead of the local players in this area. And in Brazil, the dynamics of the industry is very interesting, because the government regulates the tests that are covered by the healthy plans. So there are a couple of exams and procedures that the government regulates and obliges the health operators to cover when you pay a private health plan. So each year, and in the last 8-10 years, we start seeing that genetics tests and exams starts to gain exposure and starts to being covered by the healthy plan. So it's just the beginning. In the future, right now, I would say that from all the exams and tests that you have in Brazil, only less than 5% are based on genetics. Much less, 2%. So I would bet that in the next 10 years, we would have probably 30 to 40% of the tests, the bloody-based tests, would be genetic-based. So it will have huge impact.
Absolutely, and if you mix that in with blockchain technology as well, I guess there must be organizations out there looking into putting the genetics of an individual onto a blockchain.
That's huge. I would even imagine on that. Yeah. But just on blockchain, one interesting thing that I forgot to say, that just for you to imagine, when you buy an apartment in Brazil, you don't have a digitalized process or procedures to simplify your life. You have to really have all paper print documentations. You have to sign in. If you have 100 pages, you have to sign all of it, and made rubrics on all of the pages, and made copies, one for you, one for, let's say, your wife, and one for that goes to the branch, regulatory branch that keep all this documentation, the real estate documentation. So with blockchain and CETIP B3 right now, they started to invest in digitalization and certifying digital certifications through blockchain. So you could imagine all the impact. The difficult part of it, the risk, is that you have huge lobbies from all these owners, and most part of them are politicians, owners of these real estate regulatory houses in Brazil. So it's going to endure 2, 3, maybe 5 years, but this is going to happen.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, certainly the concept of the smart contracts through the blockchains that Ethereum have created has been seen as a way to, I suppose, secure people's contracts when they are 100 pages long, to stop falsification potentially, and also the loss of documentations and fires and things. So surely some benefits there.
In Brazil, it will have huge benefits for sure, because you have a lot of trouble in falsification of documents, in bureaucracy. So in Brazil, I mean, for sure, you have a couple of costs. Imagine in Brazil, a bank that suffers a lot of workers' process. Roughly, you could reduce in terms of G&A expenses. I mean, from all your G&A, you could reduce 5 to 10% only on legal expenses. It's massive.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
And I think blockchain will help a lot.
Yeah, fantastic. So, is there any one piece of advice you want to offer to the audience on what they could invest in from now that will benefit them over the next 10 years?
Okay, great. I think right now the energy sector in Brazil is providing a lot of good opportunities. And when I say the energy sector, I would go specifically into two segments: the transmission segment and the generation, the renewable energy generation sector. So we start to invest more intense and more heavily in the transmission sector. A couple of 2 years ago, we partnership with this company that we invest, Alupar, in the projects, and these are, besides being very boring, it's providing a very good returns, inflation plus 15 IRR returns. And the contracts are very long duration, so the contracts are 30 years contract, and you have the options to renew the contract after 15 years. So it's one of the sectors that, besides being very boring, not very innovative, but the returns vis-a-vis the risks are very good right now.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that. Alexandros Sabanai, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you a lot.
Wonderful.